Hey there, and welcome to the second video in this series about Gemini's numerology, which is a book I recently published and is now available on Amazon. I will be including a link to purchase this book, but only if you enjoyed watching this video. In this video, I, Carlos, plan on showing you how to do several things. Firstly, as the name Gemini's numerology, how to write your book suggests, numerology provides most of the clues necessary to develop a character and write his or her story. However, Gemini fills in the gaps between what Carlos has learned thanks to numerology. This means that emphasis is on numerology, yet Gemini does play a supporting role in this particular chapter. We will learn about Aries, several words that describe his behavior, as well as the SU, OE, and FN techniques provided by numerology. As above, so below. In this case, the emphasis is on the techniques provided by numerology, as well as, or more importantly, how SU1, OE1, and FN1 symbolizes your character's behavior or other aspects of your character. In astrology, Aries is one of 12 signs, the ruler of one and follower of Mars. Plus, he is a cardinal fire sign. His soul's urge, SU, is 6. OE, which is outer expression, is 1. And his FN, which is his full name, is 7. Imagine you have a warrior, pioneer, or potentially scientifically innovative character in your book. Then you decide his or her birthday is late March to mid-April. Rather than use the term they, I will use he from here on out. Sun in Aries is strong through doing. In astrology, fire and air are extroverted. Extroverted signs are referred to as he. First thing people notice about him is symbolized by the number 1. 1 lies on the physical plane. It is where our body becomes tangible and more. The numbers on the physical plane are doers. Granted, they think, plan, and feel like any other. However, if they all they do is think, then this becomes mentally exhausting. In Aries' case, thanks to him being a cardinal and fire sign, this is especially true. He finds it easiest to think as he does something. In this regard, fire is much like earth. Yes, fire is able to think abstract thoughts, but he prefers to apply them so he reaches the goal or goals he has in mind. When he achieves the goals, they manifest themselves in our physical reality. According to Joanna Martine Woolfolk, author of the only astrology book, she wrote, fire has, begin quote, a need to express oneself, end quote. These expressions exist here on the physical plane. Two noteworthy things about one are a need to communicate and working on solo projects. This is not exactly news about Aries. As a fire sign, he is self-expressive. The same is true for 1. Granted, he is willing to play by others' rules, but only either out of necessity or if he believes they will further his goals. 1 on his own is a strong orator. Unfortunately, the flaw of 1 is expressing emotions becomes slightly awkward. Another potential flaw is his lacking a social life. He loves to work alone. Sometimes his arrogance, thanks to his being able to swiftly learn things on his own, leads to him alienating others. This means one may choose to work alone, yet at other times he has done something to make others avoid him. One is associated with both fire and cardinal. Cardinal is great about taking initiative and doing something. Cardinal has its roots in 11, 2, 6, and 1. The FN1 forms a circular bond between one's and cardinal spirit. In effect, cardinal rules and is ruled by one. For a brief recap on FN, it takes into account all the letters in a word or a name, whereas the 11-2 symbolizes the outer expression, which is only is concerned with the values of the consonants in the word cardinal, whereas 6 is cardinal's SU, which means the remainder of the letters are now vowels, and therefore 6 is only concerned with the vowels in the word cardinal. So, as you may have realized, the whole word results in the FN, and that is 1. So 1 is incredibly powerful when it comes to cardinal, because it takes into account all the letters or the whole word. Now, one of the characteristics of Aries and 1 is innovation, which is why this video focuses on innovation before going into other descriptions of 1. Innovation's attributes, just like any other word, include an SU, soul's urge, OE, also known as outer expression, and FN, also known as full name, numbers. In his case, they are 4, 3, and 7 respectively. This, as I have said elsewhere, means there is a double dose of proactivity, plus there is an element of cerebral activity. I sincerely believe no number has a monopoly on an attribute. This means even if 7 were to be the most proactive of all numbers, it is not the only proactive number. Furthermore, each number is proactive in his or her own way too. Yet if one were to rank the numbers, one may find out 7 really is the most proactive. For now, despite the hypothetical, I have yet to form a crystallized opinion of each number. For now, I am still performing mental experiments, much like my favorite scientist, Albert Einstein. My Geminian nature says, just as money is backed by a nation's wealth, words are backed by ideas. Ideas came first, words came second, so we can express these ideas. In the previous paragraph, most people ought to be mindful that originally a word is the name for the idea. This was why I note the double meaning. I refers to Carlos and my Geminian nature. Make the claim any word has 3 attributes: soul's urge, outer expression, and full nature. They are also respectively known as SU, OE, and FN. Going back to the numbers, 7 feels more spiritual than the other physical numbers. He, like Libra, caters to relationships. He prefers to teach himself than letting others teach him. Granted, there are times when he is a willing participant and being taught, yet most of the time, unlike Libra, he prefers learning by doing alone. One of the most powerful lessons he learns again and again is a lesson of sacrifice. Some of the things I have read are on the brink of being too critical. Granted, now I am being too critical of their choice of words. Yet I am hoping to find a sweet spot between being too critical and too soft, as I try to do 7 justice. There are times when 7 suffers more than necessary because he puts too great an emphasis on learning by doing rather than learning by listening and then doing. By writing his story, I hope to help me walk a mile in his shoes. This way I can figure out the good and the bad involved by this great emphasis. This way I may be able to help him make the most of his sacrifices. Rather, thanks to the series of videos and my one published book, I hope we can go on this spiritual journey together. This means if the video is effective, you will be inspired to do 7 justice as well. If you do, then we may find the sweet spot between being too critical and too sympathetic with 7. For further clarification, check out Carlos's video on innovation spirit of 7 versus his spirit of 4, which has not been released yet, but hopefully will be in the near future. Innovation's SU is 4. She also resides on the physical plane, which may explain why I earlier said that innovation has a double dose of proactivity because 4 and 7 are on the physical plane. And now back to 4. Her strengths include being quite practical, a great listener, and gradually building upon what has worked in the past for her. Yet her strengths cause her to be overly dogmatic thanks to her unwillingness to think outside the box. She has a tendency to keep on doing things the way she did them in the past. It is also possible for her to replace old traditions with new ones. She listens to a new leader. Even though her old way of doing things still works, she puts an emphasis on what she hears. What she hears is actually less effective. For example, she may be left-handed. She makes great products using her left hand. Then someone new comes along and starts telling her how to make the same product using her right hand. The product itself suffers thanks to the fact she manufactures better with her left hand. However, the new person appreciates her obeying him. Talk about mixed blessings, right? And lastly, for innovation, is the mental number, which is 3, or what I earlier called an element of cerebral activity. This number symbolizes her outer expression. It is what I call the mental mind weaver. It's a gateway between memories and the mind. Basically, this number is a bit of a daydreamer. It, or rather he, forms impressions of others, as well as various tasks that need to be done. With these impressions, he comes up with a plan of which person ought to do which task, so that the strengths of the person match the strengths required by the task. When done effectively, 3 can be incredibly powerful. However, 3s have a tendency of being daydreamers, which, according to one of the books I have read, is like somebody staring out the window and thinking how nice it would be to mow the lawn. Yet because of his tendency to daydream, he might just keep on staring out the window, thinking how nice it would be to mow the lawn without ever actually doing it. Yet, in Innovation's case, because of the double dose of the physical numbers, he is more likely to get up and actually mow the lawn than just sit and think about how nice it would be if it is mowed. So together, they become powerful, but on their own, the flaws may overwhelm his strengths. And now for 1's introduction. 1 is a first number in numerology. He is also the resident of the first house on the physical plane. He shares his home with Aries. Rather, the house belongs to Aries, and 1 lives in that house. He is a gifted orator, versatile worker, and prone to arrogance. In a chart, when 3 numbers are diagonal in a row or in a column, they form an arrow. 1 is part of 3 different arrows: determination, which is diagonal going upwards and to the right. 1, 5, 9 are the numbers in it. Planner is a vertical arrow. 1, 2, and 3 are in this arrow. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, is the arrow of practicality. This is a horizontal arrow which goes through 1, 4, and 7. In an upcoming video on arrows, I will go into detail about how the numbers interact inside an arrow. Hopefully this video shows the chain reaction of the 3 numbers as the arrow is activated. Stay tuned until this video is released. When it's released, its name is Arrows of Strength and Arrows of Weakness. Aries' soul urge, SU, is 7. His outer expression is 1. His full name, FN, is 8. It is thanks to his outer expression of 1 that he rubs off on his roommate, and his roommate rubs off on him. They both have high regard for being proactive and self-expressive. They each express themselves by what they do and through speaking. Soul's urge, SU. If 1 is your character's SU, which has to do with the vowels in their name, then he longs for confidence. He is confident when he speaks clearly enough to be well understood, and his actions speak of mastering talents. When he masters a talent, he may also learn how to be self-motivated and how to start a project. Yet 1 is a solo number. This may diminish his confidence when others avoid being around an arrogant jerk. However, being an arrogant jerk may grant him the freedom to do as he pleases. Him doing as he pleases satisfies the urges of his soul. Soul's urge, Libra, 1. Libra's SU is 1. This makes sense. He excels when it comes to communications. Plus, he is a self-starter who prefers to be practical in his activities. The main exception has to do with Libra's need for relationships. He is about the group projects, whereas 1 is about the solo work. Otherwise, SU1 perfectly describes Libra. Full name, 1. Strengths. 1 is a confident doer. He needs little direction to work towards the goals for his job. As he does them, he figures out ways to do it better. Doing his job better is a confidence boost, and it is only granted by learning as he remains active. Yet this strength may become a weakness when he arrogantly believes his way is the best way, or it may result in always doing the same thing again and again without ever socializing with others. He is an eloquent orator. Mentioned earlier was 1 as part of the arrow of the planner. He either dictates this plan to others or writes it down as he comes up with a plan. In order to follow a plan, 1 needs to effectively talk about it. He needs to understand the plan. Without clearly stated ideas and steps, following the plan becomes hard. This is why he is an eloquent orator. He speaks eloquently enough to get his points across. Knowing what to do is a strength. Lastly, of his strengths mentioned for now is 1 takes initiative. Unlike 3, who may only think about doing something, 1 does it. He is not one to sit idly by. He wants his ideas to manifest themselves. This way they are seen by others. 1 is a physical number. For example, suppose your character is a salesperson. Their goal is to sell products. When they do well, they get promoted. These promotions grant him a nice office, a thick wallet, and perhaps more. The perks of his success can be seen and felt. They are physical. This is why he insists on taking initiative. Initiative leads to material blessings and confidence. Just as he has strengths, he also has weaknesses, and yes, he refers to 1. If your character is a highly successful salesperson, then he may become quite arrogant. He has good reason to think his successes makes him better than others. His ego is inflated by his material prosperity or by how much of the product he sells. What he may not realize is that he refuses to engage in quality control. He could be selling inferior products to his competition or its competition. This tarnishes his company's reputation. At first, he blesses his company greatly. When consumers realize the product is low in quality, i.e. cheap, they stop buying it. Yet he still believes his technique is perfect, despite the fact he is actually costing his company sales. Another potential weakness is his being a soloist. Thanks to all the praise he receives at work, he spends so much time there. He never goes out just to have fun, or the activities he does engage in don't translate well to hobbies available. Imagine he lives in a port town. Many of the people who would be his friends spend their time fishing, yet the only skill he has mastered has nothing to do with fishing. Thanks to it not being work-related, he never socializes with the people who he would like. Instead of socializing, he engages in a habit that sacrifices friendship for material wealth. The last of the 3 weaknesses, for 1, is entitlement. Entitlement is a thought distortion. He is not a mental number, which makes him vulnerable to it. Entitlement is thinking you, without any effort or the wrong type of effort, ought to be granted it. For example, suppose you honestly believe by having a big house, a well-paying job, deserve your spouse to knock on your door. You feel cheated because you thought all it takes were these things to reach the goal. You never go to the places where that spouse goes, nor do you approach her emotionally if you were to meet. Entitlement is frustrating. This anger may make you less approachable to her. As the anger grows, the door of opportunity closes. And the same is true for 1. He may rely on things that will not accomplish the goals he has in mind, but by being entitled, he will continuously be frustrated because he never reaches the goals, despite all the effort he puts into doing things the wrong way. Potential careers. 1 has numerous strengths that, when applied to the right career, are very profitable. He is a gifted orator. Thanks to this, he may be a motivational speaker, attorney, or even a salesperson. He is also a jack of all trades. Effective managers need to know how to do the things their employees do. This leads his engaging or having engaged in numerous trades to effectively being a manager. Another potential career is manager, for the above reasons. Plus, when he learns the effective lesson of wise risk taker, he may make his career business entrepreneur or consultant. FN Taurus. Taurus's FN is 1. Oddly enough, thanks to the fact she is a fixed sign, she is not arrogant. She is stubborn though. This is odd because fixed signs are known for changing their environment through sheer will, yet the handful of Sun and Tauruses I have met They may have a temper, but they don't come across as arrogant, like an FN1 ought to. However, she prefers to speak in concrete terms. Plus, thanks to her stubbornness, she is a practical doer. When she does something, she does it well. This too is a hallmark of 1. The only major difference, which was mentioned earlier, she lacks 1's arrogance. Otherwise, she resonates perfectly with FN1. OE. In this section, I frequently go from using his to his or her. His refers to the spirit of the character's outer expression, which is frequently called the personality number when you do research online, whereas his or her refers to the character you are writing. The outer expression is how their world and the audience perceives your character. However, in the audience case, they see more than the characters in the book, which is their world. This is the result of you offering hints and perhaps granting them opportunities to read the character's mind. Basically, the character's behavior is just part of how the book's audience perceives them. Of all things, the outer expression has the biggest influence. If you ever disliked hearing do not do as I do as I say, then you know exactly what I mean. Otherwise, hopefully the next parts are illuminating enough. If your character has 1 for his or her OE, then he is frequently outspoken. He probably demands to have the last word, too. Plus, thanks to him rigorously testing his own ideas in the physical world, he comes across as either suave or arrogant. It would probably take a lot of talking to get him to realize he made a mistake, even though he may not do as you requested. Yet picking this as his OE may make things easier for you. 1s have a tendency to develop a life of their own swiftly. You swiftly learn their limits and their strengths. From this, you only need to prioritize them to tell his or her story. OE Aries. Aries OE is 1. Unlike Libra, Aries is great at doing things on his own. He is very versatile, loves communication, both orally and in writing, with eloquent passion, and he can be just as arrogant as 1. Much like 1, he can be callous about others' emotions as well. Furthermore, he rules the first house. It is no wonder they have so much in common. Application. Imagine a man. His name is 1. If your story briefly talks about his college life, then it would go something like this. He has an objective. He wants to earn a vast amount of cash as a salesman. He knows he can reach this goal. To this end, he plans ahead as he picks the best employer for him. Then he attends the right college to be granted an opportunity to work for that employer. He works hard enough in school to form a network of friends. Plus, by graduation, he knows enough to thrive as a salesman. More importantly, he gets the grades necessary to accomplish this. Upon graduation, he is granted an entry-level job working for them. Also during college, he comes across as a bit of an entitled jerk. This is especially true in his dating life. Women are there just to satisfy his rare moments of loneliness, more importantly, to satisfy his carnal lusts. Women may hate him for being like this, yet they still end up in bed with him. Given this behavior sounds a lot like Aries, it makes sense that Aries rules the first house. They have too much in common. He knows what he wants. He knows how to get what he wants. He is very proactive in getting it. In 1's case, he is practical. Only practical enough to reach his goals, yet his shortcoming is being too impulsive. There are times when he ought to press on. Instead, he focuses on something else. For example, he may have his eyes on 1 girl. He spends enough time with her for him to seduce her, then impulsively he ruins his chances by dancing with another girl. Turns out the second one is better suited for him, yet thanks to his impulsive nature, time and effort were wasted. In the case of your character, he may be a salesman. He may stop trying to sell something to a guy that would pay a very high price. Then he alienates them by ghosting them. Next they see the shiny object they wanted to buy on another client. This infuriates them. Now they refuse doing business with him altogether. His impulsiveness has just cost him much money. to increase the drama. His arrogance means he lets this happen too often. And this is a sign of an entitled nature. He feels entitled to making sales because his versatility is just that great. And this entitlement feeds his arrogance in the eyes of others. Selling things is easy for him. Therefore, he easily recovers from these losses when an ounce of prevention would make recovery no longer necessary. Last shortcoming for one is him being solo. He does not compromise. This is the result of being arrogant. He is a great doer. When others realize his flaws and tell him about them, he ignores them. At times he gets angry that they think they can offer anything of value to him, angry enough to wound their emotions. If this happens enough times, then they refuse to socialize with him. In this case, his arrogance is the reason he is the lone wolf. It also may mean he is emotionally distant. In his dating life, he views emotional people as weak. His girlfriend really wants to know him. She wants to comfort him when he feels down, yet he never shares his feelings with her. Yet she loves his confidence and passionate lust enough to put up with this. However, if your story is a romance or involves romance, then he may either lose her to up the intensity for chapters. After this, he does or says something to win her back. He finally learns emotions are what two lovers who actually love each other do. Rather, two lovers do love by expressing emotions with each other. Yes, love is as much a verb as a noun. By knowing how your character behaves, his presence is felt by your book's audience. Just imagine him in his daily life. Hopefully this video provides enough hints so you feel his or her presence. Lastly, this application about one does not describe the nuances of OE, FN, and SU. It shows how other characters in his world perceive him. However, if his SU is one, then this describes how he perceives his own emotions. He would occasionally act on his desire to be outspoken, to be versatile, to learn something new, and teach this skill to himself. Whereas the outer expression does a great job of explaining how the other characters perceive his behavior, while his FN usually determines what job your character would have. For example, if his OE is 1 and his FN is 2, then he is probably a forest ranger, and he needs to sell brochures and park tickets to other characters. He may even go on a crusade for environmental rights. Given this, OE symbolizes everyday behavior. SU symbolizes how your character perceives their emotions and intuitive desires. Then the FN symbolizes his job and potential purpose in life. The summary for this video is the SU refers to a character's soul urge. This number, as I tried to visualize it, is like the second floor of a house. On it, in this case, are various trophies for speech competitions. Plus, there are books on effective communications. There are also books on how to do pretty much anything. This grants one more practicality as he tries his hand at new things. He may even write one or two of them himself. Then on the first floor is his outer expression. Once again, this floor would show various products that boast of his accomplishments. It's also the floor where he entertains guests. On the top floor, which represents his mind, are still pretty much the same thing. This time they are likely to be dedicated to his work accomplishments. Did you enjoy watching this video? Would you like to read about how one's weaknesses are transformed into strengths? Perhaps you wish to include his spirit in your book as your character follows one's character arcs. Rather, his potential character arcs. If this is the case, then check out the link in the description, which will allow you to view my book, Gemini's Numerology, on Amazon. Thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you. Carlos out.